to trust a single word they say. You are creating all the bubbles at play. There's a girl, there's a girl, there's a girl, there's a girl. She's down by the river. In her own creepy world, there's a girl, there's a girl. She's down by the river. It's time to consider that baby is a sinner. She'll wash away your sins, wash away your sins. She'll wash away your sins, wash away your sins. She'll wash away your sins and go home. I only once upset my Ken, accused him of a moral slip. Well, he came back and claimed a change. I know his life's the same again. I can't ask him again. I should let it go. You are creating all the bubbles at night. I'm chasing around trying to pop them all the time. We don't need to trust a single word they say. You are creating all the bubbles at play. There's a girl, there's a girl, there's a girl, there's a girl. She's down by the river. In her own creepy world, there's a girl, there's a girl. She's down by the river. It's time to consider that baby is a sinner. There's a girl, there's a girl, there's a girl, there's a girl. Wash away your sins, down in the river.
When I'm underneath the bright lights, when I'm trying to have a good time, 'cause I'm good now, you ain't mine, nah, 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 nah. Don't call me up when you're looking at my photos, getting hot, losing control. You want me more, now I let go, nah, 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 nah. I'm over you, and I don't need your lies no more, 'cause the truth is without you, boy, I'm stronger. And I know you said that I'd change up a cold heart, but it was your game that last, 'cause ooh, I'm over you. Don't call me up, I'm going out tonight, feeling good now you're out of my life. Don't wanna talk about us, gotta leave it behind. One drink and you're out of my mind, nah, nah, take it up. Baby, I'm on the high and you're alone, going out of your mind. But I'm here up in the club, and I don't wanna talk, so don't call me up, 'cause I'm here looking fine, babe, and I got eyes looking my way, and everybody's on my vibe, babe, nah, 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 nah. Don't call me up, my friend said you were a bad man, I should've listened to them back then. And now you're trying to hit me up again. Nah, Don't call me up, I'm going out tonight. Feeling good now you're out of my life. Don't wanna talk about us, gotta leave it behind. One drink and you're out of my mind. Now I'm not pick it up. Baby, I'm on the high and you're alone, going out of your mind. But I'm here up in the club, and I don't wanna talk. So don't call me up. Don't call me up, I'm going out tonight. Feeling good now you're out of my life. Don't wanna talk about us, gotta leave it behind. One drink and you're out of my mind. Now I'm not picking up. Baby, I'm on the high and you're alone, going out of your mind. But I'm here up in the club, and I don't wanna talk. So don't call me up. For your pleasure, I will give you everything that I own. For good measure, no need to make it any other than it already is. I was awake in my dream when I was looking for safe passage. I try to find a way to safe passage. Never imagined I would ever be free from your story, staring in the face of an infinite sea. I'm everything I need. No need to make it any other than it already is. I was awake in my dream when I was looking for safe passage. I'm trying to find a way, safe passage. No need to make it any other than it already is. I was awake in my dream when I was looking for safe passage. I was awake in my dream when I was looking for safe passage. I was awake in my dream when I was looking for safe passage. I'm trying to find a way, safe passage. It isn't easy for me to let it go, 'cause I've swallowed every single word, and every whisper, every sigh eats away at this heart of mine. And there is a hollow, so I'll put my faith in something unknown. I'm living on such sweet nothing, but I'm tired of hope when nothing's to hold. I'm living on such sweet nothing, and it's hard to learn, and it's hard to love when you're giving me such sweet nothing, sweet nothing, sweet nothing. You're giving me such sweet nothing. And it's not enough to tell me that you care, when we both know that words are empty air. You give me LA on my mind, I can't breathe. You're there when I close my eyes, so hard to reach. Your smiles turn into crying, it's the same release. And you always know, and you always know that I'm your summer girl. I'm your summer girl. I'm your summer girl. I'm your summer girl. Lightning in your eyes, you can't speak. You're falling from the sky down to me. I see it in your face, I'm relief. I'm your summer girl, I'm your summer girl. 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 Peer around the corner at you. From over my shoulder, I need you. I need you to understand. These are the earthquake drills that we ran under the freeway overpass.
The tears behind your dark sunglasses, the fears inside your heart's deepest gashes. Walk beside me, not behind me. Feel my unconditional I was left to my own devices. Many days fell away with nothing to show, and the walls kept tumbling down in the city that we love. Great clouds roll over the hills, bringing darkness from above. But if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like nothing changed at all? And if you close your eyes, does it almost feel like you've been here before? How am I gonna be an optimist about this? How am I gonna be an optimist about this? We were caught up and lost in all of our vices. In your pose as the dust settled around us, and the walls kept tumbling down in the city that we love. Great clouds roll over the hills, bringing darkness from above. But if you
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Headliners 2020-21. I mean, 2021, look at us. Look at you all chatting in the comments. I'm loving seeing this and seeing people dancing in slippers. PJs seems to be the thing that is, the dress code for tonight, and that's okay. No judgment at all. This is also exciting. My name is Leah Davis. I am a presenter. I am a co-founder of System Magazine. I am a founder of the Capital Extra Book Club. And I'm so ready for tonight. I saw a couple of you say that you're missing book events, and I know exactly what you're saying. But we've got tonight, and we're going to hold on to it, because let's be honest, after the week we've had, the month we've had, the year we've had, we deserve this. And it's going to be an amazing night, all right? It's literally jam-packed to the rafters with incredibly talented authors. And the books that we are going to be discussing tonight, they cover a whole range of different themes and topics, from memoir to female-fronted fiction, Paris, sass, and big reveals. But before we delve in, I'm going to take a second, right, and just remind you that you have done something brilliant by getting involved with Headliners 2021 today, because not only are we here celebrating some amazing authors, but of course, all of the funds raised from your tickets, minus VAT, will be going towards the Arts Emergency Fund, who help young people flourish in higher education and the cultural industries, right? They run mentoring projects in London, Merseyside, and Manchester, which is just brilliant. And we all know that the arts could do with as much love as we could possibly give them right now. The Arts Emergency Fund offer gateways into hard to crack industries like TV, publishing, architecture. So thank you so much for grabbing your ticket to Headliners 2021. And of course, if you want to show us some love on the socials, please feel free. Just use the hashtag Headliners 2021. We want to be trending internationally in the next 5 to 10 minutes. If you can make that happen, any influencers that are watching, do what you got to do, all right? Make it happen for us. And of course, I would love to say thank you to our brilliant sponsors. Kind protein bars, and Corsten Press sodas. All of their details are in the Zoom chat for you if you want to know any more about them. And I think without further ado, now we've done all the admin bits, we can get stuck into some bookie greatness, right? And our first guest that we are welcoming to our virtual stage here at Headliners 2021 is the incredible author, Francesca Rees. Francesca, are you there?
I am. I just can't work out. Oh, we go. Start my video. Yeah, hi.
There you are. Hi, Francesca. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, really good. So excited to chat to you today about voyeur. I mean, the title of this session is a little bit of voyeurism with Francesca Rees, which is, I mean, candidly a little bit creepy, kind of cute at the same time. I can't quite decide, but Voyeur is a story of a young woman who is ambitioned out of London and finds herself aimlessly drifting abroad. That is until she meets Michael, a washed up author with writer's block, and she delves into his seedy 60s Soho diaries and realizes maybe there is more to Michael after all. Oh, my goodness. Francesca, how are you feeling about Voyeur?
It's all very surreal now. I can't believe it's actually happening and going to be in bookshops in like, what, 3 months? Slightly daunting, but exciting, obviously, like mad.
Of course. I mean, we need to talk about Leah. I have to say, it was a little bit confronting and triggering to read a book with a protagonist with the same first name as me, because that hasn't happened to me in years. And I also feel like I'm almost close to being ambitioned out of London. And I spent some time in France for a year in my year abroad. So I was like, okay, too many home truths in this one. But I'd love to know, how similar is your Leah to you, Francesca?
Ooh. I mean, it's difficult because I started writing the first draft of the book in 2016 when I was 24. Obviously, as with a lot of first novels, a lot of it is drawn from real life experience, but it is also like, I mean, so much of it's just complete fiction. She's maybe similar to my 24-year-old self, but I feel like I'm now a very different person from that slightly lost kid. Yeah, there are definitely similarities, but it is still fiction. I mean, yeah, so many parallels, but
amazing,
entirely similar.
Well, I would love if you could give us a little extract from Voyeur, if you're up for that.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear that.
I'm reading off this slightly raggedy piece of paper because it's a paraphrased extract, so it's
No problem.
lack of presentation. So these are some sort of, as I said, paraphrase extracts from the very first chapter. I got into the habit of taking long, aimless walks around the city. I kept returning to the same places. My feet would carry me there mechanically, places I'd gone before when I hadn't felt so astronomically useless. They existed in a constellation around Paris, anchors that pierce through layers of time and can route me back to various landmarks in my memory. On that particular Monday morning, I sleepwalked over the Pont des Arts and into Saint-Germain-des-Prés. Here, across from the bottle green awning of Les Deux Magots and its hordes of gaudy tourists, I could be a student again. Feeling full of the light absence of responsibility, I made my way down Rue des Saints-Pères and into a cafe where boys in blue shirts and red chinos with beautiful floppy hair and impeccable jawlines talked about the European Union and internships in New York. The light was grey that morning. The Seine had been grey. The imposing buildings of Sciences Po, slicing the space of the street by half, had been grey. The only colour in the room besides the strip of muted neon along the zinc was the institutional blue of the Fusaks piled up by the door. I slipped one into the stack of papers in my bag and took a seat in the corner. I turned to the first page, Annonce d'emploi, a dull fog of the same words again and again. Babysitting, business English, hotel receptionist. Then all at once, my eyes found an inconsistency in the middle of the page. Writer seeks assistance to help with archiving research for a new novel. I self-consciously circled the advert, relishing how cinematic the action felt, and stuffed the paper back into my bag, where my lack of actual action was out of sight.
I'm sure the crowd is going wild right now, of course, as we would if this was a real profit in real life event. Amazing. Voyeur is just stunning. And we talk about this idea of being ambitioned out of London. Do you think that is quite true for a lot of young people, young creatives at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. I think London is just such an inhibitively expensive city. I mean, Paris also is extremely expensive, but you can still kind of live there slightly cheaply. And I think also the other thing is, especially as a Anglo-Saxon kind of person, if you are living abroad when you're in your early 20s, you can kind of step back from the terrifying competition that's going on in cities like London and New York. So I think that you feel less pressure on you, and you don't really mind if you're just drifting a bit, really, because I feel like for our generation especially, there's such a huge pressure on people to, like, from when we're kids basically, to be like molding ourselves into the perfect CVs, like to walking, talking skill machines. So I think just being abroad in general, like being removed from your culture, is just, it's very freeing. And I think the sad thing about London is it's just so expensive, and if you haven't got rich parents, or if you're not from London, like you can grow up in London and be okay, then it is like, it's a difficult place to live if you don't know what you want to do, basically. But I still love London.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I have to know, where were you when you were writing this? Because you paint these pictures so effortlessly and so beautifully. Whereabouts were you?
I was in Paris. I started the book when I was living in a little Champ de Bonne, which, if you guys don't know Paris, then don't believe what Emily in Paris shows you. It's not a vast, enormous flat. It's like a tiny, mine was 9 square meters. It's like the old servants' quarters up in the eaves of those beautiful old Tasmanian buildings. So I lived in one of those for the first year of writing, and then I lived in a very chaotic flat share with a bunch of my mates and rotating subletters in the 19th arrondissement. So I was always like sort of northeast of Paris. So yeah, I was very much there whilst writing.
Amazing. It flows so beautifully off the page. I love it. And I mean, what advice do you think you would give to Leah and Michael, the 2 protagonists of Voyeur, if you could maybe talk to them, obviously spoiler free? What sort of words of advice would you give to them, do you think?
Oh, that's tricky. I think that anyone who's read the book will know that Michael is not the kind of character who would take advice, especially not from some 29-year-old loser or whatever. I feel like Michael's not the kind of person you can advise. God, what advice would I even give him? Leah, I think I would just advise her to not be so trusting of people, which is probably what I would tell my 24-year-old self as well. Just be a bit more on guard. But then at the same time, actually, I kind of like the way that Leah just embraces all these experiences and sort of just goes with the flow. Like, yeah, you know, I think she's doing okay. She's drifting and she's not on any kind of set path, but I'm very much behind her life choices, even if some of them are disastrous.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for chatting to us today at Headliners 2021. Voyeur just, it makes me want a trip to Paris real bad. I'm not gonna lie. Even though I know it's not as glitzy and glamorous, but I would love a trip.
Thank you
so much, Francesca.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Voyeur is good, guys. It is really good. And with our second session, Finding Your Je ne sais quoi with Marissa Cox, the good news is we are staying in France. No blue passport is needed. And I'm excited to introduce to the stage Marissa Cox to Headliners 2021.
Hello.
Hi,
Leah.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Really good. You are the author of Practicing Parisienne: Lifestyle Secrets from the City of Lights. I mean, you kind of have the key, the answer that everybody is looking for, getting that je ne sais quoi, that ridiculous chicness that just seems to come to France so naturally. And I think it's exactly the guide that we are all looking for right now. And you have to tell us, right, what were your first impressions of Parisian women when you first got to France?
Well, visually, I'll start with visually. Obviously elegant, but not quite as, one of the things, they don't dress up too much. So there wasn't a lot of like high heels, a little bit more kind of casual. And then, I don't know, there's certainly, I would say, a bit of more of an air of confidence, a bit of nonchalance. They're just a little bit more kind of laid back. I mean, I lived in London for 8 years, and then moving to Paris, I mean, the pace of life is just slower. The women I feel like they're just not rushing about as much as Londoners do, for example, kind of taking their time, enjoying life. And I mean, it is a bit of a cliche, but I would say kind of on first meeting, they do maybe come across a little bit colder, but that's also because they're a little bit less interested in, you know, kind of say small chat, surface friendships. They're just a bit more interested. I mean, once that you get to know them, you just realize like there's so much kind of more there. Like they want to know about your personal life and like the nitty gritty. And yeah, there's certainly differences, which is why I wanted to write about them, because there's just so many lessons that I've learned since living here.
Absolutely. It's so interesting that you say about the depth. I think that comes across really quickly. The philosophy or nothing, sometimes it feels, right?
Yeah, and I think, you know, because, you know, a lot of these women, you know, they've grown up in arguably the most beautiful city in the world, you know, just surrounded by galleries, museums, beauty. I mean, they're interested, philosophy, they read a lot, they go to the art galleries. They're just much more kind of interested in, you know, talking about culture. And this is certainly something that I noticed, you know, from having meetings in Paris. You know, a lot of it would be 90% personal life and then 10% work, because they really want to know kind of what makes you tick.
I mean, I've seen a couple of the comments pop up in the chat as we're talking, people saying, I love Paris. I wish I could be in Paris right now. I've recently heard of Paris syndrome, which is a psychological condition experienced almost exclusively by Japanese tourists who are disappointed by the City of Lights when they get there because it doesn't live up to the expectations. How was it for you? Did it live up to the dream that you thought it was going to be?
You know what? And that's another reason why I've written the book, because it was never my dream to move here. Like I visited Paris a couple of times when I was younger. I always thought it was beautiful, but I never really aspired to live in Paris. For me, it was kind of a bit of an open air museum. I was much more interested because I'm half American. And my dream when I was much younger was, you know, to kind of be Carrie Bradshaw, like pounding the pavements in New York, you know, bright lights of the city. And so, yeah, Paris was just never really kind of on my radar of a place to live. And I think because I didn't have these kind of expectations is also why there's so many kind of lessons that I've learned, because I didn't come with too many preconceived ideas.
And I can imagine.
But there is certainly, you know, I think a lot of people come to Paris and they just expect it to, you know, just be kind of like, you know, the beautiful streets around the Louvre, for example, and all the museums, and, you know, drinking wine and baguettes all the time. And, you know, like any other city, it has its negatives. You know, Paris can be quite dirty. I have, you know, some friends who don't really like it that much, and, you know, that's fine. But then, you know, against the negatives, there's all this other like wealth of positives, which, you know, I've really kind of grown to love, and ended up becoming a Francophile, even though I actually studied Spanish at university. I wasn't even interested in French culture.
It really won you over.
Ironic. Oh, it totally won me over. I mean, you know, I just really fell in love with the lifestyle here, the pace of life, you know, spending a few hours on a terrace outside of a restaurant, whiling away hours, drinking some wine. And, you know, there is this beautiful, you know, joie de vivre and Parisian lifestyle, which, yeah, it really did. It has charmed me. It's not an easy city to live in sometimes because there's a lot of bureaucracy, but, you know, I really love the lifestyle here.
And I think after the pandemic is over, I think a lot of people are going to be looking for some change in their life. People are going to be thinking, that's it, I'm packing my bags and I'm out. Do you have any tips for making friends and socializing if I were to end up in Paris, hypothetically speaking?
I mean, I got lucky because I was introduced to a French friend who I'm still really, really good friends with 8 years later. And obviously, you know, I kind of migrated towards, you know, more of an expat community at the beginning, what with the language barrier, because I didn't speak any French when I moved to Paris. And obviously that made it very difficult. And it's not that, you know, Parisians are, you know, they can come across maybe a little bit colder, but it's not so much that, it's more that they lack the language as well. So it's almost a bit of an embarrassment that they don't have, you know, the English language skills. But in terms of making friends, I mean, I also, you know, I got kind of involved in Instagram very early on. I was very lucky to meet a lot of other, you know, expat kind of bloggers, self-taught photographers. And really, I just kind of connected a lot online. And I mean, this was, 7, 8 years ago. And, now it'd be even easier, I think, with, to be able to kind of connect online. So, I mean, that's one of the ways that I met friends. And then kind of, you meet one person, they introduce you to their friends, you kind of build a bit of a network. A lot of the meetings took places in, cafes around Paris. And, you just end up speaking a bit more to maybe like the cafe owners, for example. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of it was actually online and through social media.
Well, I'm sold. I'm absolutely sold. Now, as you mentioned, famously, France has a very different work-life balance compared to what we have here. How did you find it adjusting? Did you feel almost like you wanted to hold on to your 30-minute lunch breaks that you had in the UK just to prove that you were really working hard, or could you let it go quite easily?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I went to university in London, and then I worked for, a good five years, and I worked in PR, I worked in journalism, and most of my evenings were kind of taken up with maybe going to like 3 events in a night. On the weekend, I would be trying to, see various different people, and obviously with the distance in London, that was kind of a bit difficult. And, really kind of moving here, although I live, in the French capital, it is a capital city, it is just that much slower. And while sometimes, I might miss that kind of faster pace of life, it just, I couldn't imagine living in that, like, for years on end. Like I just enjoyed to take a bit more kind of time to, maybe eat lunch. I mean, why should we be eating lunch in front of our laptops every day, for example? And, a lot of French people, before COVID, they really did take like an hour lunch break, because, your meal is very important. I mean, there's the cliche of like the Parisian woman that she doesn't eat very much, that she's, very slim. And, they do eat, they love to eat and they love to drink. But they just don't do it to, complete excess. They don't indulge too much. It's just kind of everything in moderation. So, I mean, in terms of work, one of the other things which it took me a while to get used to, but I've never, because I've obviously lived in London for 8 years. I also did Erasmus a year abroad in Spain, in Valencia. So I've now lived in 3 different countries. And I've never lived in a city where basically almost the entire city just migrates south for August. Like they really, they make the most of their holidays. They get some of the big longest holidays in Europe. I mean, they're very lucky, but they really do. They make the most of it. Yeah. And I really do think that the term the joie de vivre is like, it's alive and well here. People do kind of, slow down a little bit more, take time to, enjoy their dinner or lunch or whatever, and take time to, have a drink with friends. So yeah, it's just, I certainly, for example, I remember last year, being in London for a week, and I'd come back to Paris and I would just relax.
Breathe.
And de-stress, yeah.
Oh, amazing. Well, I'm sold. I'm certainly ready to start practicing Parisian in Paris. Once this is over, get me a ticket. Thank you so much, Marissa, for chatting to us.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I mean, just makes me feel even more bleak from here, to be honest. But I've got good news and I've got bad news for you. The bad news is we are heading back to the UK. But the good news is we are going to be meeting 3 women now who make this dreary, drizzly country a whole lot brighter. Tolly, Milena, and Audrey, aka the Receipts Podcast. Hello.
Hey.
Oh, we got 2 out of the, there we are.
It's such a struggle to figure out like how to turn everything on.
Where am I? How are you doing, guys?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, really good. So excited to be in the presence of the Receipts Podcast. I mean, come on. Also, the authors of Keep the Receipts. 3 women, real talk, no filter. We love the title. Brilliant news.
So
guys.
weird being called an author, honestly.
I was just about to say the same
Like,
thing.
what are you talking about?
Author.
It's just honestly the best news. And I have to ask, as a fan of the Receipts podcast, can we expect the same brutally honest, infectiously hilarious energy from Keep the Receipts?
I think so. So I haven't read The Girls because I'm trying to like keep it as a surprise. Although I think I'm gonna just do it soon. But like, yeah, that's so hilarious, and I feel like it will be just as funny and just as honest because it's an hour tone. So I think definitely it like expect laughs, but also I think it's probably like really more personal than probably we thought it would be. It's really, really personal.
Yeah, definitely went deep in some chapters for sure. I've not read The Girls chapters either. And I said in the group chat, I'm going to wait until I have the physical copy to actually read it all. We got the first draft and I sat on my sofa like crying in tears. Like, I can't believe this is actually happening.
Oops.
Audrey's Zoom does this often.
Straight up mine.
We've had a year of recording on Zoom, so I knew it was. I saw her talking. I was like, "Yeah, this is gonna."
No.
Nope.
Oh,
It's fine.
okay.
It's fine.
You'll come back. You'll come back.
Yeah. Her chapter is also very funny. Audrey's the funniest of all of us.
Yeah.
Known for her jokes, so I feel like
Now, of course, if anybody watching isn't familiar with the Receipts, you guys are new age agony aunts. You know, we can come to you with our issues, our queries, our problems, and you will always come through with the tea. So if you're not too knackered from being agony aunts, can we ask you a few more questions that our viewers have sent in? Is that all right?
100%.
Yeah, okay, let me get my phone. The joy of technology, bear with. I thought you guys might just be over it. You might be all advice out, you know what I mean?
Literally, it's become a part of our lives now. When the world was open, we'd like go clubbing or whatever, and be stuck in the toilet and be like, and then can I just ask you a question quickly? And then I'm there like an hour after, like, okay.
You're like, not really.
I want to party.
I just want to rave. Like, Drake's new song has just come out. Like, let me live.
Exactly. Okay, right. Question number 1 is from, maybe not actually say her name first, just in case. Okay, question number 1 is, my boyfriend and I speak entirely different love languages and he doesn't enjoy engaging in mine. What do I do?
Oh, personally, I think it's about listening to one another and having that communication there and being able to compromise. I understand that everybody loves differently, but it's about wanting to love that person how they want to be loved. I would say just speak to him and be like, you know, this is really, really important to me. And I feel like if I don't get that from you, then I'm like unsatisfied in this relationship. But don't go on without it because you end up sacrificing and not compromising your shit. I say that right.
Yeah,
I definitely say the same thing. And also on like love languages, I have a whole thing where I feel like we all deserve more than one love language. It doesn't just have to be one. I feel like I speak for like straight women, I feel like many straight women give out all of the love languages without even realizing, just because they love someone, sort of thing. So if someone can't fit into your 1-2 physical touch or 1-2, you know, quality time, then I say leave him, sis. I know it sounds harsh, but like, you deserve to be loved how you want to be loved. And if someone
100%,
they're not up to spot. And I think that we have a habit of being like, it's fine, I don't mind. But you do, and you're not happy. So go somewhere where you can be loved appropriately. So that's what I'll do. I'll leave him, sis.
I wanted to hear that iconic line at least once tonight. So. Receipts bingo, tick. I'm so happy. Audrey,
still, yeah.
No. So sorry. So sorry. Okay, question number 2. How do I know what's a red flag, and how do I know what's me sabotaging my own relationship?
Okay. So my general problem in life is that I like to see how red the flag can be.
Yeah.
So is it deep red? Is it a little light tinge of a pink? Is it? And that's generally why I'm in the situation I'm in right now in life. But in terms of how do you know what's a red flag, I think you just have to. It's quite a hard one to. I think it's important to know what your non-negotiables are. I think there's certain things that you should be like, this, regardless of anything, this thing is a problem for me. Like, this is one thing that I'm not able to do. And then once you figured out those things, you kind of know what is not a red flag and what is just you you know, scared of commitment or scared of being hurt or whatever like that. So I know it sounds ridiculous, but like make a list of things that you, even if it's a mental list of like, I don't want someone that does this. I'm trying to think of one that's mine. Let's say, for example, I don't want someone that smokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a red flag for me. Like, I just don't like it. And also, I'd rather like not live life without the fear of you getting sick or, you know, or smelling cigarettes or anything like that. And just make a list of what you definitely won't have. And then go from there, then you can decipher what's a red flag and what is just you being scared.
Yeah. 100% retweet. And going back, I think it goes back to like the love languages as well. Don't ignore the red flags, because I be like Stevie Wonder up in here. I will be ignoring them so hard, and then I end up breaking up with the person for the exact reason that I ignored everything. And it's just like, pay attention, listen to your intuition, and retweet everything Tolly said.
I like that. The list sounds very practical as well. Like you can really see it then right in front of you, can't you? Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
What if I call Audrey and put her on speaker?
Oh, that could work.
I can't see it, honey.
Oh, this is
what Audrey are connected to. Sorry to do like a tech talk, but Audrey is probably connected to her mic or something that it shouldn't be.
Right.
Yeah.
Damn technology.
Go on the mute button and then click the out. Sorry, we're not doing this. There's people in the room. Sorry, next
Okay.
next dilemma.
Okay, we are back to the red flags. Okay, ready for number 3?
Okay.
What's a red flag that you see on a date straight away and you're like, nah, this person is a no from me? We heard Tolly was maybe smoking, but on a date, what about on a date?
I think being rude.
Yeah.
I think being rude. And not even like rude. That sounds awful. Like obviously I care how you treat other people as well. But I think there's some people that quite like dismissive of you and don't want to compliment you and don't. I just kind of like make you feel like you're lucky to be there.
Oof.
Yeah, exactly. I have a big thing of feeling like I just want to be looked after, like look after me, and at least the date, like pretend to like want to have me here and feel like not lucky, but yeah, let's both be lucky that you're here, rather than you feeling the like, you know, the big uns.
Yeah,
I'm not into all of that.
No, I think that, and as well, like somebody that isn't kind, and also somebody that just talks about themselves and doesn't ask questions. Like I feel like there has to be a balance between being interesting and being interested. Like you have to ask me questions. Like I'm not going to sit there and just listen to your whole day at work, hun. Like ask me how I am.
That line, listening and being interested and being interested is like a line that I live by, and I've always said it. Like literally, I remember hearing it once. I'd be like, that's it. Be interested and be interested. Like, I want to know you and you want to get to know me as well. And that's basically it. And I've literally like lived by that cue for quite a while now.
Amazing. Well, we can see why people come to you for advice. It's very clear. It's very clear. I'd love to know though, back to the book, Keep the Receipts. What have been your highlights of the writing process so far? How's it been?
It's been hard. It's Katie in this room. Katie's our editor. It's been really hard, and honestly I have enjoyed it a lot. But I think one of the things for me is, which I guess is a highlight, is to certain things resurfacing. There's certain things that you kind of, even like, I know when we talk about repression, it's often memories that are not nice, but there is something about memories, even if they're nice or not, that you remember that I'm this way because of this thing. So it's actually quite nice for certain things that have resurfaced and kind of like make more sense to me now, looking back as an adult. And just like, it just allows me to look back at things that were like hilarious and really fun times. I've mentioned quite a few anecdotes in there. And it's just like, oh my God, I've had so much fun.
Yeah.
Which is
quite beautiful. Yeah. And it's easy to think that we actually just don't do fun anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so that's nice for that little memory lane trip.
Yeah. I think it was, I always say this every single time, I never went to uni, so I wasn't able to do a dissertation. So I've treated this as if it's been my dissertation. So like my friends will call me, I'll be like, guys, I'm busy, I'm an author, I'm writing a book here. Like I don't have time to be doing these things. Good. But in all honesty, going back to what Tolly said, is just having those things that you've suppressed for so many years resurfacing, and then having to deal with all of that. It's like you're now an open can of all of these emotions, and it's like, where do you go? Luckily for me, I have therapy that I could go back to and be like, you know what, I was feeling this way when I was writing this, like, how can I change that? Or where do I go from here? So I think it's been a really, really positive and fun and difficult experience, to be honest.
Amazing. I mean, you guys must have been working on it for such a long time. I mean, back to the podcast. The Receipts podcast is just taken over the world, to be honest. Let's be real, guys. It's taken over the world. What is the thing that you still love about it? What has kept you going all this time, giving us the regular content?
It is the listeners and the stories. I am so
Yeah.
obsessed with storytelling and just listening to people's stories. And like, people are going through it. Every time I think there's not a way that another dilemma can surprise us, I'm like, there's no way, we've heard it all. Something new happens, and it's just like, sorry, what is happening in everyone's dating lives? Like, everyone is going through it. And honestly, ban straight men is what I love. It's just what all it is. And once that happens, we'll stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's the listeners, it's the fact that we have a community with the hashtag on Twitter. It's the fact that we're able to read everybody's amazing DMs and the emails that we get. It's like, oh my God, we are doing bits, you know?
Yes, you are. You've been doing bits. It's amazing. And do you have any memorable dilemmas that always stick with you? Like, what's some of the maddest stuff that you've heard that you can share right now? You know, this legal.
No, literally. So much of it includes like people like pooing in wrong places. I know that is like a weird thing to say, but there were so many dilemmas of people's like seeing people's bodily excretions in places it shouldn't be when they date.
Yeah.
And that always surprises me, because everyone that's dating are adults, but yet people's bodily things are just not right. And that's the best way to do it.
I think I know what dilemma you're talking about, and it's definitely that one for me, where a girlfriend found her mother-in-law pooing in the bath and leaving it on the side.
If you just saw what Audrey did there, that was her hinting to me about another dilemma, which was involved a woman walking in on her partner sucking his mother's breast.
Yes.
So that is why Audrey was currently... it's not just something she does, it's just how we communicate. What she's talking about. But yeah, that's what happened there.
Yeah, I remember that one too. Yeah, you guys really do hear a lot, don't you? There's me thinking like, you from the outside world, you are going to think, oh, this guy's weird on a date, but no, you're right, it does get weirder than that, doesn't it?
Sometimes we're like, no, you need to call 999 like immediately. We cannot help you with this one.
Amazing. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for chatting to
you.
us today here at Headliners 2021. I also have heard that we are trending in the UK, so come on, we love it. Audrey, I'm so sorry that you had your audio issues, but it's all good. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for having us. Bye.
Yeah. Oh, they're so sweet. They are so sweet. All these red flags running through my head now. Yes, good news. We are trending, guys. We did it. This feels great. And we are speeding through these authors. Please feel free to continue using the hashtag on social media. But let's meet our next guest. Deborah Mogger is the author of The Black Dress, and Harriet Evans is behind The Beloved Girls. Welcome to Headliners.
Hi.
Look at that. Hello.
Hi, Deborah.
Guys.
Hello. I just want to hear more of that stuff, to be honest. That is my job.
It's quite traumatizing at the same time, I would say.
Yeah.
Not where I expected it, but I love it. Guys, would you be so kind as to give me an overview of these two gorgeous books? Whoever wants to start, please.
Deborah.
Okay, well, this is my 21st novel, I think, and it's called The Black Dress, and it's about a woman of 70 who's dumped by her husband. Not an unusual situation. She's in a state of total despair and going slightly mad, a feeling of betrayal and stuff. Anyway, she walks past a charity shop one day and sees a little black dress in the window, and that triggers something, because what do black dresses tell us? They tell us about funerals. And she realizes something which we all know, which is at funerals, all sorts of people crawl out of the woodwork that one doesn't really know, from different parts in a person's life or whatever. And so she's also been told by her best friend that there are very few men around. They all want a younger model. And if she wants to get a good one, she better nab one quick. and the way to nab one quick is to go to a funeral of a woman and nab the grieving widower, get first dibs on him before anyone else. And so she, Prudence is her name, and not her manner at all. She's not at all prudent. She dons the little black dress and off she gate crashes various strangers' funerals in the hopes of copping off with the grieving widower. It's a bizarre thing to do, but it has a certain logic to it. Of course, it all goes terribly, terribly wrong because this is a novel, so it's not going to work out very well. And there's a couple of humongous plot twists on the way, which sends things off in another direction. But it's a sort of dark comedy, and I hope it'll plug into what women feel, particularly when they're left on their own and want to sort of take revenge and also have someone else to love them, because I think the world's full of extremely lonely women, certainly of a certain age. So anyway, I had a huge fun writing. I wrote it in lockdown, and which sort of exacerbates one's feelings of isolation and things. And I had a huge fun. So I hope it's fun to read as well as to write. I want to get that Harriet now.
That's great.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Deborah. Harriet, take it away, please.
Well, my elevator pitch is that The Beloved Girls is it's like Daphne du Maurier meets The Wicker Man with bees. So you've got this barrister in North London. She's really successful. She comes back home from holiday and you know things aren't quite right with her. You just start to see that she's a bit disturbed in some way and something's gone wrong at home. And then she goes to work the next day and this dead woman turns up. And this dead woman starts turning up everywhere she goes and she's writing her letters. And you don't know really who she is. You don't really know what's going on. You just know that this woman is slowly losing control. And you don't know what's real and what's not real. And at the end of part one, this is in the blurb, so I don't think this is a massive spoiler. At the end of part one, she's supposed to meet her husband to go on the Eurostar to Paris, which I also really want to do. And she vanishes and you don't know where she's gone. So, and then you go back to 1989 and Catherine Hunter, which is the name of the woman, lives in this, she's a teenager and this strange girl comes to stay at her family's kind of weird Gothic house on the edge of Exmoor overlooking the sea. And it's about what happens that summer there. And they have this like ritual every year with these beehives that are in this chapel that have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. And they have it every year at the end of August. And it goes weird. And I finished quite a lot of it in lockdown. And I found the fact that I wasn't really seeing anyone, I thought didn't help. Now I think it has helped because it's made it really weird. It's quite a wild ride. I'm really proud of how unexpected and, you know, all of that it is.
Amazing. Well, I'm seeing the comments pop up in the chat as you are both describing these brilliant books, and there's a lot of people very excited. I'm seeing sold. I mean, as soon as you mentioned bees and Wicker Man, a lot of people got very excited. As soon as you mentioned funerals, Deborah, I think a lot of people's ears pricked up because these two books just absolutely fantastic. Could you please tell us more about how lockdown has affected you then? Maybe Deborah, starting with yourself.
Well, in a way, I mean, what's interesting is that writers are sort of in lockdown all the time because we work alone and we're quite solitary creatures. I mean, I'm particularly sociable. I love doing things like this. It's fun meeting you all. But a lot of writers don't see anyone anyway. They live with their characters. That's their company, really. But lockdown, of course, has been very different. And certainly the first lockdown compared to this one, which I think everyone has found, it's been very, very different, this winter one. So it's been quite, I mean, it's awful to say that I enjoyed it, but actually, because I knew that nobody was doing anything very interesting, and I think everyone feels this, I didn't feel, as I often do when I'm sitting there, you know, typing away at my computer, everyone else is having a huge good time, because nobody was having a good time at all. So in a way, it sort of suited me, but that sounds rather selfish because it was, of course, extremely traumatic for practically everybody. And I don't have children. I mean, I do have children, but they're grown up and they don't live with me. So I didn't have to do all the fantastically difficult stuff.
And Harriet, how about you? How did it affect you?
Well, I have a 4-year-old and a 9-year-old. And so I don't want to be rude about them because they're literally like right next door, but it was a real nightmare. And they went back to school last week. I just really, I just like this time round, the 4-year-old had started at school last year. She wasn't at school, she was just at nursery. So she's lying around on a beanbag watching Frozen 2 for a lot of the time. And it was nice weather. And we just moved out of London, all these themes that keep popping up. And we were so glad to have made the move just before and just to have got out just in time. I mean, not that, well, I love London, I'm from London, but to have made this big life decision to have, you know, so that, but this time you're trying to teach a 4-year-old to read. And we both have full-time jobs. And like teaching a 4-year-old to read is really hard, as well as the 9-year-old, everything else. Making meals, you just wipe the table all the time. You're just constantly wiping the table. And it was mind-numbingly awful. It was like boring and stressful. And I like my job, as Deborah does. You know, I'm really lucky to do my job, and I didn't have enough time to do it. And so I'm really glad it's over. It's over. I really enjoyed the extra time with my family, though.
Of course. I mean, thank you so much for being so honest. A lot of comments as well popping up just saying, yes, you're speaking for all of us. I can't even imagine how you've done it as a parent. It's truly incredible scenes. Now, you are both you're so great at observation when it comes to your books, and these women that you present to us aren't, sometimes they're a little bit flawed, they've got their issues, they have their ups and downs. Do these characters give you a little bit more scope when you're creating them, do you think?
Do they give us more scope? Sorry.
Yeah, having these characters that are sort of multifaceted and flawed, do you have a little bit more scope for creativity with these characters, would you say?
Well, I mean, I'd be interested what Harriet says. I mean, I think we're all such a mixture. You know, everyone I know well, and I'm sure everybody feels this, are a huge mix. That they might be both quite tight with money, but also quite generous in other ways. We're a mass of contradictions. And the more one knows somebody, like the people, you know, your nears and dears, the more contradictory they are, and the more difficult to write about. I mean, I write about people who I make up. I don't know how much Harriet feels this. They have elements of people. Sometimes they have elements of somebody I might see on the bus or something, but they are also part of oneself. It's a very peculiar process. And as you write the novel, you get to know them better. So they're helping you write it. And if it's going well, that's a great feeling. You know, you're with this person who's telling you their story, and it starts to take off. And that really is more fun than fun. But an awful lot of the time, it's completely ghastly.
I think there's also a thing about, I'm doing a hashtag on Instagram with my new novel, which is called Harry's New Novel, where every couple of weeks, I write about the process of writing this novel. And one of the posts that people responded most to was this idea of characters. And I quite often will have to go to character school with them, because we've all read books and seen like things like TV dramas, quite often police procedurals. The harassed wife of the detective is always in a fluffy bathrobe, and she's always sort of like really beautiful but with a messy ponytail. It's so cliched. Yeah. She's just not a believable person. You know what I mean? And quite often I'll start to write someone and I think this person isn't quite there, and I need to just do a bit more work on them. And so I'll sort of go to character school with them. I think about what their favourite film would be, what their favourite shoes are, you know, what Alec Guinness said, once I know what shoes a character wears, I can understand the character. And if you think about it, that's just, so that means you're writing from a place of understanding them. And that means they're all you, because you created all of them, but how much you disseminate throughout it it's just much easier if you totally have understood these things about them, I find.
It's very interesting you say that, because that's what I do. And you can live with a character for maybe several weeks. You choose a character and live with them, and you ask yourself questions like, what would they do if they saw somebody shoplifting, or they were stuck in a lift? And slowly, as you ask yourself these questions, they sort of thicken up, and they become living, breathing people, and you do sort of become them, even if it's in, a middle-aged, bearded actor bloke. It doesn't matter. The gender doesn't matter.
No.
Fascinating. You guys, so great. I mean, you show both the lighter and the darker sides of life in both of these stories, as you've made quite clear from your summaries. Do you ever have real emotional reactions when you're writing? Are you laughing out loud? Do you sometimes find yourself tearing up, crying when you're writing? How real does it get for you?
Well, I laugh at my own jokes, because if I can't, who else can? Anyway, I also nick jokes from other people. But it's interesting you say that, Leah, because I think that in every situation there is humor, even in the darkest situations. For instance, in my previous novel, The Carer, there's I talk a bit about dementia. My mother had dementia, and she'd say things like, "Oh, Debbie," she said, "there were 2 men in my bedroom last night. There was one under the bed and one in the wardrobe. I've never believed in threesomes, and I'm not going to start now." In the blackest situation of terrible dementia and carers, that happens, and that, if one can reflect that in one's books, you're reflecting what actually life is like.
That's so true. I think, when I delivered my last novel, The Garden of Lost and Found, I really cried as I was sending it off, because it had become so, I felt very upset at saying bye to them. I can't stand it when people talk about their characters. Debbie, I don't know if this is true for you, but when people talk about their characters as if they're kind of like a pet, or, I know they're not, but they are so real to me, and I find it quite emotional. So yesterday I took down all the stuff that's behind this computer. I've got my memory board, and I took down all the synopsis, all the photos, all the pictures of the board. I've got a map of the house and what it would look like, and I found it unbearable. I mean, not unbearable, that is just a stupid thing to say, but for me, in my really tragic life, it's really hard to say that book has now gone to page proofs, you put it behind you. And maybe it's also because we wrote it, it's a weird time to write it, and because it's called The Beloved Girls, and I think of them as my girls, and they have this really terrible time, and I haven't seen enough people lately.
I mean, we're all guilty of that. I love it. Do you ever, when you sit down to write, do you write with a specific person in mind, or is it just my readers? Is that just sort of a homogenous term?
Well, I don't know what Harriet would say. I'm writing for myself. I'm writing the book that I want to read, and that answers things. And that, the writers that I absolutely love, they sensitize me to the world, and they alert me to feelings that I've not recognized in myself, but I realize are true. And they companion you. You don't feel alone. And that's what novels can do. They increase your empathy for people, but they also make you feel companioned in the world, and it's quite a modest thing to want to do, but I think that it's a lovely thing if it works. It's really lovely.
And there's like a James Baldwin quote that Marcus Rashford put up a couple of months ago, that's about what was the point of all these books if not to show you think your pain and your suffering is unique. It's a great line, and basically the point of reading is to show you your pain and suffering is not unique. That's how you find other worlds, that's how you understand other people's lives. Because I do same as Debbie, I totally write for myself, and I write the book I want to read. And that means you're not doing cynically, because if you're writing a book thinking, now, how's this going to play in Tesco? It won't work out, because some of the most bonkers books are the ones that are huge successes, you know. So and that's not done cynically. And I think that's really important to write something for you that you'd be proud of in 20 years' time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you guys, I'm agreeing with all the comments that are coming through. I could listen to you two talk about books forever and a day. I mean, thank you so much for giving us both of these great novels. I'm sure everyone is going to pick them up as soon as they're out. Thank you so much for chatting to us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Deb.
Bye-bye. Oh God, I love them. I really do love them. Now, if this next interview goes anything like this brilliant author's books, then this will have you on the edge of your seat. I am delighted to introduce you to the queen of the big reveal, Dorothy Koomson. Are you there? Look at that.
Hello.
Hi, Dorothy.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. Loving the backdrop, looking very solid. Love that.
I know my husband and I were sat there going, stay on the wall earlier on, because they kept falling down.
Well, it looks great. It was worth the effort, absolutely. Now, this is really cool because we've kind of come a little bit full circle, because we're now back to our themes of voyeurism and watching with your upcoming novel, I Know What You've Done. Now, could you tell us about your lockdown writing experience? I'm just fascinated to know how everyone's been coping.
It was weird, actually, because as Deborah was saying, I spend a lot of time on my own writing, and obviously with lockdown, my husband being home all the time, I'd walk into a room and be like, oh, you're here. I keep forgetting that he was around. So it used to make me jump a lot. And I thought I didn't do much writing. There was so much to do, because I started a podcast during lockdown where I started a podcast called The Happy Author, where I interviewed people about the publishing process to open up the publishing world to people who wanted to be writers or who were just interested in books. And I started a book subscription service, and I found it really hard. I have to say, I found it really hard. Towards the end of last year, lots of things were going on in the world that made lockdown really difficult. And so I kind of stopped writing as much as I should. I was writing a bit, but not as much as I do. When I come to a deadline, I'm like 24/7, and it kind of went sort of very slowly. And then writing this book, which is kind of a post-lockdown book, and I know a lot of people don't want to read books about lockdown, and this isn't a book about lockdown, but it references, because I can't write a book where for me, I write about the real world, so it'd be odd for me to kind of pretend that that lockdown didn't happen and all that stuff, the stuff that goes on, but it's not about lockdown, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, so much of your writing is rooted in realism and believable, tangible events. So that absolutely makes sense. Do you think that comes from this idea that truth is sometimes stranger than fiction? Is that why you're drawn to the realism?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some of the things that I hear when I'm talking to people for the books and doing research, some of the things I hear, I always know that if I wrote them down, people would not believe it. They'd go, oh, that never happened. And people say that about the stories I do write. And I sort of think, if you knew what I actually took out, what I didn't write about, you'd be surprised. So no, I like to write about the real world, and I like to write about people and the things that make them tick and the things that go on in our life, because it's all around us, it's all real. But having said that, I have to say I'm a big science fiction fan. I have always been. So I do like the whole different planets, superheroes and stuff like that. I've always been a sci-fi fan. So I do like both. I like reality and I like the other stuff as well.
A little bit of escapism thrown in there as well from time to time. Now, you are so great at identifying, as you said, what makes people tick and the little insecurities and anxieties. Does that secretly come from a little bit of voyeurism and people watching yourself, you think?
Oh, absolutely. I'm complete. I
Yeah.
don't and pretend I don't watch people. I watch people all the time. In fact, I've got my husband to do it. It was quite funny. He was sort of watching somebody walk down the road a few months back, and he said to me, "Look at that person. I bet you they've this." I was like, "Oh, my work here is done." You know,
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
made up this whole backstory, which is what I do. And I go out, if we used to go out for a meal, or if I go out on the bus, on the train, I sit there and watch somebody and I think, oh yeah, and I bet you that you're like this and this is what's happened in your life. Oh, well, absolutely. I watch people all the time. And people often ask me where I get my ideas from. And it's often from, I was about to tell you, I'll tell you, I don't mind, eavesdropping, listening to people's conversations. It's great. You know, it's absolutely great. You kind of hear a part of a conversation and you can build a whole story from that. So yeah, absolutely observing people, watching people, absolutely.
Love that. I mean, you're using what's given to you, right? You're just using your surroundings.
Absolutely.
Now, I'd love to know, would you describe yourself as a psychological thriller author, or would you give yourself a different title if you had to put yourself like in a little box, I suppose?
Well, my books have kind of changed. People used to read my original books, they were kind of romantic comedies. And then I wrote books that made people cry. And then I started writing, when I wrote The Ice Cream Girls, I got to the books that were kind of like psychological thrillers, the books that, they were kind of psychological thrillers, but I call them emotional thrillers because they're all about the emotions of the people involved, rather than just worrying about the whodunit element. There is a whodunit element, but there's a crime that's been committed. And a lot of thrillers, pure thrillers and pure crime books, I always think that they focus very much on the whodunit element, which is great, and I love them. But something has happened to somebody that is huge, and I want to find out how that's changed them and the ripple effect of that on the people around them. So it's more about the emotions of the people who are the victims of crime. So I call my books emotional thrillers, my later ones emotional thrillers, because they focus on the emotional part of the whodunit element. So with the current one, with I Know What You've Done, there is a crime at the heart of it, but again, it's mainly about the people and how it all fits together with the story.
I'm loving seeing everybody's reactions. Just you mentioning the Ice Cream Girls has just sent the chat wild. People like, I think someone said, I wish I could read it again, like for the first time. Love that feeling. Love that feeling. Could you tell us a little bit about I Know What You've Done? Of course, minus spoilers, but you already knew that.
Yeah, minus spoilers. That's quite hard because it's the whole thing's a spoiler. Yeah, it starts off in with a woman getting there's a knock on her door one day, and she opens the door to one of her neighbors who lives up the road, and her neighbor is clutching this book and basically is in a bad way. So she kind of brings her in and tries to help her, and then realizes that she's been attacked and someone's tried to kill her. Ray is the main character, and Priscilla is the woman who's at her doorstep. So Ray goes to call an ambulance, comes back and finds that Priscilla is gone. And before Priscilla left, she had said to Ray that she needs to find out who killed her, who's tried to kill her. And it's all in this diary. And then Priscilla is sort of taken away by an ambulance and presumed about to die. And Ray discovers that this book is a diary, which has been a dossier of all their neighbors and what they've been up to. And so it's got all their secrets in. And she decides, when the police ask her if she knows anything else about Priscilla's attempted murder, she kind of lies or doesn't tell them, doesn't really lie, she just doesn't tell them that she's got this book with all the suspects in. So she decides she's going to find out who actually tried to kill Priscilla and why.
Amazing. Oh, I'm ready. I'm very ready. I've just seen Vicky has commented saying, I have a whole Dorothy Coomson shelf. Love that.
Oh, I love that.
Author goals right there. Now, your books are fantastically cinematic. Oops, what's this on my screen? There we go. Sorry, technical difficulty there. Your books are fantastically cinematic. Is there anything you can tell us, like, would you see your books being translated onto a screen, whether it's the silver screen, the big screen? Do you think that would be something for you that you'd love to see?
Well, one of my books, Tell Me Your Secret, you can just about see it over there.
Yes.
That's been optioned by Nicholas Pinnock, who is an actor who actually starred in a TV adaptation of The Ice Cream Girls. They've optioned it and are working on it at the moment, so we might see it on the screen at some point soon. But one of the things that I do is when I'm writing a book, I don't think of it as anything other than a book. I don't write it with thinking, oh, it needs to be on the screen or it's going to be anything other than I'm telling the story. I love writing and I love writing books. So when I tell a story in the book form, I want the world to see it in book form. And that's how, you know, for me, that is more than enough. Anything else is just fantastic. It's like, you know, the icing on this great cake of having written a book. So so thank you for saying that about my books. But if anything happens, great. But if it doesn't happen, it's not the end of the world.
Amazing. I mean, it's still just so beloved and adored. Dorothy Crimson, thank you so much for talking to us today. An absolute delight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Whew, my word. We are, believe it or not, into our final session number 6 of the night, Memoir Writing and Transformation with Ivana Lynch and Xanthi Barker. This is going to be great. There's Xanthi, there's Ivana. Hi, guys.
Hi.
How are we doing?
Good, thank you. Excited to be here.
Great. Thank you so much for coming and chatting to us. I mean, it's an interesting session title and it's an interesting concept because this idea of memoir, people say a lot that it's, you know, it's transformative and that it really is a therapeutic process. We're just really excited to know how it's been for the two of you. I mean, I can ask maybe Xanthi some questions first and then Ivana after. Should we do it that way?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, I mean, with Xanthi, your memoir, Will This House Last Forever? It's just so emotional. And I just want to thank you for being so candid and honest and open in this memoir. How was it for you?
I guess I've started writing it so much as, I mean, when my dad first died, and then I was just spending a lot of time writing. So I guess it's all the same process for me. It seems like the grief part and the writing part. So that was how it began. And then when I came back later, and I hadn't shown anyone any of this stuff, but I liked the way I was writing. I don't know, it felt like the first time I'd be able to write properly and really got what was in my head out into language. And then when I came to put the book together a few years later and was kind of giving myself permission to really just write everything and remember everything I could, then I feel like it was a really nice experience because it was just so much like going back into some memories and revisiting these experiences in with a kind of joy, and when maybe before they would have been quite painful.
I mean, I think it's such an admirable challenge to give to yourselves. It takes so much courage to be this honest. Did you find it, is it cliche to say that it's therapeutic to write a memoir? Did you find any solstice in that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when like the beginning of the book, I'm talking about feeling like my dad was alive, and I think I really was stuck on that for a few years after he died. I felt like he wasn't dead. Like people were saying he's dead, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. He's not really dead. And then I think by the time I was writing it, that was kind of going away. And then definitely by the end of it, I felt like, okay, he's definitely dead now. And I kind of, so in some ways it feels like a loss because then I have to accept that he's gone. But in another way, maybe it's kind of right that I have to accept that level of reality. Yes.
Amazing. I think you're brilliant. But you recently became a mother. Congratulations, of course. And I wonder, has that affected your grieving process with processing your relationship with your father? How has parenthood changed that, if at all?
I think that, I guess I probably expected, and it's definitely feels very true. I'd heard before, like I now I have a child and I just wish that my dad could meet him, you know. It's that feeling of thinking how and looking out for him. Suddenly my baby really hates being in the pram, and every time he tries to get out, and he always looks like my dad. It's like the same way my dad got out of a chair. And I kind of like that. It's nice to see him there, but also yeah, it makes me probably understand him more. My dad left when I was 4 months old, and that's kind of part of what made all the grief really complicated. But when I had a baby, I was really curious. I thought, well, what's a 4-month-old baby going to look like, I guess. So it's almost like revisiting that part of, and I think anyone who has a baby, you kind of go back to your own really early experiences, often like against your will, or just having those things come back to you. So I was really curious, but at the same time, it made me really understand him. Like, I know how difficult that can be, but also feeling really sad for him that he couldn't have just stayed around a bit longer. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Xanthi. I was going to ask Ivana a few questions as well about your up and coming release of your memoir. I mean, how does it feel to know that the world is going to know your story from your point of view?
Yeah, that's really exciting. I think, especially with the topic that I'm talking about, I think I've tried to tell this story before, like in the media, because I'm somebody, I really like expressing myself. I really like telling stories. I find that just connects me with people in the best way. But I find, you know, my book is talking about eating disorders, and I find it's just a topic that's so sensationalized in the media. And I've seen my story be sensationalized in a way that I don't recognize. I think people so much focus on the symptoms of these, you know, these problems and these conditions, and it's so not about that. So yeah, I'm excited to just get the truth out there. And it's like, I think I've been trying over and over to tell it in a truthful way, but it's just like, it doesn't fit into an interview. It doesn't fit into any kind of post. It really just has to be written down in a book. So I'm relieved to finally be putting it down. Yeah.
Amazing. And I'd love to know, who are you writing for, Ivana? Who would you love to pick up your book?
I definitely think, first and foremost, I'm writing for myself and my younger self, who I think, yeah, didn't know a way through this. And also I get a lot of letters from young girls and also from their parents who've gone through these kind of things. And again, sometimes I've taken on correspondence with these people, and it's very emotionally laborious, and it's just also like, I can't tell you everything. So it's to them. And I think also, as I've been writing now, I've been realizing, oh, I think this is a lot for my parents. Because one question, like as I'm writing the book, I keep remembering my mom being like, why did this happen to you? What did we do? What happened? And I think people are looking for like a clear, you know, a diagnosis almost, or to have the answer. And some people do have triggering events, but for me, there wasn't an event. And it's almost like I'm writing it to my parents to be like, no, there was nothing you did. This is just something that I had to go through. And so I see it as a sort of existential struggle, as a question of self-worth. Why am I here? What am I doing? And here's something that kind of distracts me from that question. So yeah, to kind of, for all those people, yeah.
I mean, I would just thank you in advance for sharing that story. So important, such an important story to tell. And Ivana, most of us know you for your acting. I'd love to know, how long have you been writing for? Has this always been a passion of yours?
Yes and no. I wrote a lot when I was younger. I wrote a lot about my cats. That was like my little hobby I used to give them characters. But I still don't know, even after months of writing this book, I do not know if I like writing. I find it incredibly tedious. And I don't know if it's partly because of lockdown, because life is so dull, and then you go to your desk and it's still so quiet. So I don't know yet if I like it, but I find it satisfying. I find like I have a confidence in this method of self-expression. But yeah, I mean, I write letters. I've always been a big letter writer. And but I think I'll be very relieved when this is done, to go back to not writing every day.
I don't blame you on that one. I love your honesty as well. Thank you for being so honest there. And I mean, I have a question for both of you regarding memoir as a style. Do you feel any nerves, any anxieties about putting your life on the page?
Yes. Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely feel, I mean, I feel like I didn't mean to write a memoir. I just was writing stuff, and then it felt like I don't even know what happened. I just liked it and felt like there was some worth in it, and then showed it to people and they liked it. But I definitely, yeah, you feel so, it's very exposing, isn't it? You're telling these people all these, I mean, you tell people things that even your kind of maybe close friends don't know, and it's just, I guess you have to feel like there is some like purpose in it. Otherwise it just seems like a completely just strange thing to do, isn't it? Why would you tell anyone all your secrets? But I have to, so
yeah, I absolutely don't want any of my friends and family to read it. Like they're texting me like, "Oh, pre-ordered it." I'm like, "Don't undo that. Do not read it." Like I like I want this story to be out there for, you know, almost it'll be a more real version of my public self. But oh yeah, I'm sort of writing this book as if imagining they're not going to read it, because if I imagine they were going to read it, I don't think I would I don't think I would write it. No.
You wouldn't have got there in the first place. Okay. You guys will, I don't know if this is a weird question to ask an author, but would you read it back yourselves, do you think? I mean, of course, you've been reading it the whole time, but do you think in a few years' time you might revisit it?
No, for me, no.
No.
I really want to just like get this story out there and move on. I think I've just, you know, kind of what I touched on, I've been answering these questions so many times. Like every interview I do, people ask about this, and it's like, this happened pretty much 20 years ago. I don't want to keep talking about it. I just need to, you know, express it clearly, and then yeah, I'd like to move past this story. Yeah.
Exactly. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think I don't know, maybe sometimes actually when I read it I remember things that I thought I'd forgotten, and sometimes that's nice. I guess it makes me feel close to my dad, and I remember things that, yeah, and I actually sometimes think, how did I even remember that, to write it down, because I don't now remember it. But also maybe it's nice to get away from something so that your memory is a bit free again, and you can remember things in your own like the kind of sudden way of memory, rather than something that's already been recorded. So maybe a bit of both.
Amazing. Okay, well, guys, thank you so much for sharing with us today. You both share on topics that are extremely personal and but so important, and we really appreciate you guys coming through to Headliners 2021. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Oh, guys, I think we made it. We've made it to the end. I'm panicking that I haven't forgotten anyone, have I? No, we're actually at the end of Headliners 2021. Thank you so much for coming through and spending your Tuesday evening with us. What a treat. These women are just incredible. Just a reminder that we have work to do. We need to protect each other. We need to protect ourselves. We need to stay together after the week we've had. It's just feels great to be putting these brilliant women on a pedestal. Thank you so much for your comments and for all the love and for getting us trending. You guys, remember, you've done a great thing tonight by buying your ticket, because of course you've helped support the Arts Emergency Fund. All of the money minus VAT will be going towards the fund. And thank you to our sponsors, Kind Protein Bars and Corsten Press. Thank you very, very much, guys. Oh, of course, there is going to be an email coming down very soon, tomorrow, I believe, to fill you in, give you all the details, give you any links, any more interesting info. And I think that's about it, guys. Thank you very, very much for coming through. See you next year.